Well, loud call tonight in downtown Toronto. Hundreds gathered standing with those who were unnecessarily arrested for protesting at a construction site of a residential development in Caledon known as Mackenzie Meadows. In July, members of the Six Nation of the Grand River and allies have been occupying the land, which they have now reclaimed as 1492 Land Back Lane. Well, since then, dozens of arrests have been made, including that of a journalist covering the occupation. It was a shocking email Carl Dockstader never thought he would receive.
I feel like I'm being told by the Ontario Provincial Police that I'm not allowed to tell this story anymore.
Dockstader was charged after spending a week with land defenders reporting on the reclamation movement of land that was granted to the Haudenosaunee of Six Nations of the Grand River back in 1784. That land is now slated to be used as a building site for 218 homes. Land defenders have taken over the site, reclaiming it as 1492 Land Back Lane, halting construction since July. Those protesting say the land was signed away by the Six Nations of the Grand River elected council. However, the demonstrators, who are members of the Hereditary Council, say they do not recognize their authority.
The community there didn't consent for their ancestral homeland to be used for a large housing project, and they're going through a traditional decision-making process right now. So we're asking the OPP to stop arresting, stop their surveillance, and otherwise just violence on the Indigenous land defenders there.
The charges Dockstader faces are in relation to two court injunctions that are in effect prohibiting anyone from being on this property at 1535 Mackenzie Road. The OPP say charges were laid because he allegedly disobeyed the court order. Dockstader says he was just doing his job.
I thought everything was fine. I left on August 29th, shot one last video, and then headed home to compile my notes and to file stories to get ready for the radio show on August 30th. And then on September 1st, I was contacted by the police and told that I would be charged with disobeying a court order and mischief.
To date, OPP say 21 arrests, including that of a researcher with the Yellowhead Institute, have been made. In the case of Dockstader, police say they cannot disclose what led to his arrest because the charges are before the courts, only saying engaging in activities outside their reporting purpose could subject media personnel to charges in relation to violation of a court order and other applicable offenses.
I think it was easy to criminalize me because I happen to look like the land defenders. And I asked myself every day since the day that I got arrested, if I didn't look like the land defenders, would I be sitting here talking to you about my arrest?
You may recognize this name as the person who recently got charged.
The hundreds at today's protest outside the Ontario Ministry of Indigenous Affairs office say arrests like Dockstader's needs to stop.
You know, they're criminalized, they're being shot at by police, they're being tased. And so it's really heartening to see other people who recognize this injustice, that recognize that Indigenous people have rights that need to be stood up for, that they're also willing to take those same kinds of risks.
What has been the toughest aspect of this whole situation for you at this point?
When I tell stories and when I go on the radio on Sundays and when I file reports with Canada Land, that's totally separate from my personal life. Even though I'm an Indigenous person covering Indigenous stories from an Indigenous perspective, that's separate from my personal life. But now I have criminal charges that have been brought into my living room. I had to explain to my 10 and 12-year-old daughter that their dad had been arrested, and that was hard.
Dockstader says he has hired a lawyer. He's expected to appear in court in November. The OPP say officials are aware that Six Nation community members and the government are trying to arrange a meeting to discuss the issues, all in an effort to work towards a peaceful resolution.